Let's watch a collection of horrible fates.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Scary Interesting. In this video, we're going to go over 3 stories of people in totally ordinary situations until something extraordinary would happen, and in each case would end up being absolutely horrific. One of the stories is simply one of the saddest and most disturbing things ever covered on this channel.
Yeah, dude, okay. You know what's funny, chat? When I uploaded, like, don't get me wrong, I like Scary Interesting's videos. I think he does good work on like the images and the editing and stuff like that. But there were people telling me that he wasn't using an AI voice, and I don't think people understand that you can just make your own AI voice. Did the comments flame me for the AI comments? Yeah, I mean, people just don't get it. Like, I really think, see, I feel like that's just in of itself proof how far AI has come and how easy it is to dupe people. But I'm just, you know, whatever. Most people don't give a shit. But I'll tell you right now, it is an AI voice. It is his voice, but he is using an AI thing to create a AI voice of him. Okay? But, you know, that's all I'm saying. It's true. I mean, I'm just telling you right now, it's true. You get mad at me all you want, but it is the truth.
So as always, viewer discretion is strongly advised.
Yeah, okay, listen, I would not give a damn if he didn't put no AI generated content was used. If he did not put that disclaimer, I genuinely wouldn't give a shit. That's the only reason I was upset, is he was just lying about it. Could you ask him? I don't have chat. Okay, I don't need to ask him. I don't. I do not. I use my brain and my ears. And if you listen to this intro,
Totally ordinary situations until something extraordinary would happen, and in each case would end up being absolutely horrific.
that's not how a normal person talks, chat.
People in totally ordinary situations until
In totally ordinary situation, no one talks like that, chat.
something extraordinary would happen, and in each
Something extraordinary would happen.
case would end up being absolutely horrific.
Absolutely ridiculous. Come on.
One of the stories is simply one of the saddest and most disturbing things ever covered on this channel. So as always, viewer discretion is strongly advised.
Yeah, because people were complaining that I was mentioning like the metallic sounds and like all that different stuff. Like that, it's not even just that, it's the way he talks. But moving on, I'm sure the video is going to be great. I honestly think his videos are pretty good. I just don't like that he's using AI voice. That's all I'll say.
October 8th, 1999 was going to be a big day for 36-year-old Anna. Not only would she be meeting with a job matching service that afternoon, but it would be only her second or third visit to Chicago's bustling downtown area.
I mean, come on, guy. Okay, dude, it's just like, come on.
The Windy City had been Anna's home for the past 2 years, but she had never had much cause to hop on the L train and head to the skyscrapers known as the Loop. This busy area is known as Chicago's central business district, and in the back of Anna's mind, she was a little apprehensive. Like, what if she got lost, or what if she missed her stop on the train? None of these worries could be entertained in her mind for long, though. Her 3-year-old daughter would be joining her on her downtown adventure, so Anna needed to get both of them ready to go. As the morning wore on, they were finally ready to go, so the pair left their apartment and headed for the nearest train station to get on the L.
The AI sounds like it's drunk.
It was a short ride into the city, maybe
does.
about 20 minutes, which gave them the opportunity to marvel at the many sizes and shapes of the buildings in Chicago's downtown in the distance. At the proper station, Anna and her daughter got off the train and headed for Van Buren Street. The weather that day was also typical of fall in Chicagoland, gray, gloomy, and drizzly. The mother and daughter then moved north along Wabash Avenue, but where they were going wasn't exactly clear. Anna's appointment wasn't for another 45 minutes or so, and the two were walking in the opposite direction of Anna's scheduled meeting. Whatever the reasoning, it didn't really matter. They had time to kill in a completely unfamiliar world that needed exploring. All around them, the city was alive and humming with traffic and people rushing to lunch as the towering monolith, the CNA Center, loomed over it all.
I just want people to be more susceptible to, like, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter.
This 44-story skyscraper and its bright red exterior made it one of the most recognizable buildings in all of downtown Chicago.
Is that how
on
red
ground
it is?
level, walking across the street from
I was about to say, it ain't that red.
the CNA Center with her daughter was Anna. They walked past a parking garage entrance along Wabash Avenue, close to the east side of the CNA building. A construction canopy stretched above the sidewalk there to act as a shield for pedestrians, while workers above painted the building's steel exterior. But Anna and her daughter were on the opposite side of the street, just outside the canopy's reach.
Banana and her daughter.
The painting project had been going on for months, but little did anyone know that there was a much more urgent issue that crews should have been addressing as time neared to 12:30 p.m. What happened next was fast, too fast to react and too fast to comprehend. High above the street, a window on the 29th floor succumbed to the pressure of the wind and broke free from its frame.
Oh no.
At about 2 feet by 2 feet and 3/4 of an inch thick, the section of window then began to plummet, but it didn't just fall. It cut through the air, gradually angling downward in a vertical dive, transforming into a blade.
Oh God!
Soon enough, it was like a guillotine with no sound and no warning. No one saw it in time to shout. One moment, Anna was walking down the street with her daughter, hand in hand.
Oh,
and
God.
the next, Anna was gone.
Dude! That is fucking horrible! Bro, that is absolutely brutal. Oh my God! Yeah, that is a Final Destination ass death. Holy shit.
The glass struck the top right side of her head with merciless force. It sliced through everything afterward.
Oh.
Her passing was immediate, so fast in fact that she likely didn't even register that anything was wrong. Anna then collapsed sideways, her body crumbling beneath the sudden, silent violence. The glass then hit the pavement and exploded around her, with shards scattering across a stretch of sidewalk nearly 20 feet or 6 meters wide. Her daughter, still clutching her mother's hand when the glass came down, tugged at Anna's shirt, confused and frantic. Over and over afterwards, she screamed out "Mommy" in Spanish, begging her mother to stand up. But it was clear to the gathering crowd there was absolutely nothing that could be done to save Anna in the moment. Her daughter's tiny voice grew louder and more desperate until one of the nearby construction workers rushed to scoop her up.
Please stop.
Still, the 3-year-old kept calling out for the woman who just moments earlier had been right beside her. Bystanders also froze at the horrific sight on the sidewalk, and in fact, a woman who had been walking just 10 steps behind Anna would later recall the surreal, almost cinematic horror of the moment. How something so large and so lethal could fall from the sky with no warning. The panel had fallen from a height of 340 feet or 104 meters, and it's unclear how long it took to fall. Some estimates suggest as little as 5 seconds, others up to 25 seconds, but the exact timing didn't matter. The result was the same. What physically sent the window hurtling toward Anna was the wind that day, but the real cause was soon to be uncovered as Chicago citizens demanded answers as to how something like this could have happened. In the days following Anna's death, the truth would come out and a sense of outrage and unease would settle over the city. What fell on Anna that day wasn't just a pane of glass, it was the cumulative weight of decades of neglect. The CNA building had actually been shedding glass since the day it opened its doors in the 1960s. For 27 years, windows had been fracturing across it. Some were repaired, some replaced, and others were simply patched and forgotten. The 29th floor window that killed Anna had actually cracked in June. For 17 weeks afterward, it sat behind a thin white adhesive film, its damage hidden from the street far below. A piece of plywood was pressed against it from the inside to keep the wind from entering the building.
Oh my
Essentially,
God.
all that was holding the cracked window in place was a bit of duct tape and a wish.
Oh my
What's
God.
even more tragic is that the wind had been howling through the broken window so much that employees on the 29th floor called to inform building maintenance just 2 hours before the piece broke free. It's not that building management didn't know the risks. It did, but when repainting crews moved in to touch up the steel exterior, that window cracked, and 3 others also due for replacement were placed on hold. According to the chairman of the CNA Corporation, the scaffolding needed to replace the windows was already in use for painting. He told city officials that they planned to wait until the painting was done. In other words, the window could also wait. As it turned out, obviously, it couldn't, and it
Chat, they weren't waiting. They weren't going to do it. That was just an excuse.
cost Anna her life. In the hours after Anna's death, city building inspectors began combing through the CNA tower.
It's not even just Anna's death. It's her daughter's lifetime of trauma and suffering and PTSD of tall buildings.
They found a series of poor caulking jobs, long-standing cracks, and a pattern of slow and shoddy repairs. during which at least 4 more questionable windows were immediately flagged and ordered removed. The media then descended, as did public outrage. This wasn't just about one building, this was about every glass-covered high-rise in Chicago's dense downtown. How many other cracked panes were out there? How many other maintenance jobs had been put off? And how many other tragedies were quietly waiting their turn? The city then scrambled to assess the scope of the problem, but for Anna and her family, it was already too late. The shock of Anna's death reverberated far beyond Wabash Avenue. In the hours and days that followed, the story dominated local headlines: a mother killed by falling glass while holding her child's hand. The horrific nature of it was impossible to ignore, and the preventability made it unforgivable. In the years that followed the tragedy, it was determined that temperature differences were to blame for the windows stressing and cracking at the CNA Center. The insurance giant was fined $250,000 and agreed to invest $9 million into replacing 3,000 windows around the skyscraper. In 2002, CNA Insurance agreed to an $18 million settlement with Anna's family.
Good. I mean, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to change the suffering she has to go
Keswick,
through,
England
but-
is a charming market town nestled in the heart of the Lake District National Park in Cumbria. The town itself has a quaint traditional feel with cobblestone streets, independent shops, and a market square that's been a hub of activity for centuries. Then, just a stone's throw from the Keswick Market sits a much more modern option for recreation.
God damn.
The Kong Adventure Center has a state-of-the-art club,
AI voice fucking went everywhere there.
climbing wall with routes for beginners and advanced climbers, bouldering areas, and even an escape room, all of which make it a popular spot for rainy days and parties. In spring of 2023, a 49-year-old man made his way to the Kong Adventure Center to celebrate his niece's birthday. Family members knew the man as a loving, devoted parent who had a particular soft spot in his heart for the neurodiverse community. He was dedicated to helping those on the spectrum learn from and adapt to life's many challenges. The man also happened to be an avid and experienced climber, so he was very much looking forward to the get-together that day. One of the Kong Adventure Center's main attractions among its many indoor and outdoor climbing options was its completely man-made indoor cave. It was about 230 feet long, and the cave was marketed as an exciting activity designed to mimic the twists and turns of real caves,
Someone gonna
and began
fall
at the
and
base of the
die?
main climbing wall. As the party got underway, several of the kids wanted to check the cave out, and the man was eager to see it himself, so he accompanied them to the reception desk where they were all given helmets and flashlights. Then, once everyone had their helmets buckled and the lights turned on, the group ducked under the indoor cave entrance and climbed into Kong's den. It wasn't long after they disappeared inside, though, that some of the kids re-emerged from the entrance and made their way over to the adults attending the party. The children then informed them that the man had slipped on his way through a narrow tunnel and was stuck in a tight restriction. The adults then relayed this information to the Adventure Center staff, and immediately efforts to reach the man got underway. But it quickly became clear that they weren't going to be able to free him. So around 3 p.m., a call to emergency services
Why is there even a spot where you could fall in like that? What?
was placed, which was responded to by the fire department and paramedics.
Why is that even
When
a
they
thing?
arrived, they found the climbing wall staff and some customers taking apart sections of the wall to help rescuers access the tunnel where the man was trapped. Incredibly though, after assessing the situation, emergency services knew they needed more help. Mountain and cave rescue specialists were then called in, and soon there were more than 50 people among 6 rescue crews from various disciplines working to get the man unstuck. With growing concern for the man's health due to his prolonged static position in a confined space, rescuers continued to dismantle the climbing wall and parts of the man-made cave system to reach him. For a horrifying 4 hours, the man remained in place in the dark tunnel, likely hearing the urgent activity all around him before rescuers were finally able to get him out. Afterward, there was initially a wave of relief that came over his loved ones and the Adventure Center staff, but emergency personnel knew that the consequences of the predicament the man was just in hadn't shown themselves yet. The man was then placed on a stretcher and rushed to the hospital so he could be treated for what were termed as crush injuries.
Oh.
Now, your first thought upon hearing this might be of shattered bones and cracked ribs, but it's actually the body's muscular system that can threaten the life of someone who has been crushed by a heavy weight or squeezed for any prolonged period. And crush injuries, like those the man sustained, are among the most dangerous physical traumas. These often result in severe and life-threatening complications. This occurs when intense pressure is applied to the muscle tissues for prolonged periods, leading to cellular damage. The disruption releases substances like potassium and myoglobin into the bloodstream, and while both are normal and controlled amounts for healthy cellular function, they're both toxic once they hit the circulatory system in large amounts. Potassium itself can cause life-threatening cardiac arrhythmias, and myoglobin can overwhelm the kidneys and cause acute renal failure. Symptoms can also progress rapidly, starting with muscle pain and swelling, and escalating to fever, pneumonia, shock, and multiple organ failure. And despite appearing stable immediately after rescue, victims of crush syndrome often deteriorate quickly as their bodies struggle to cope with the overwhelming toxic load. The complex nature of these injuries also requires swift and specialized medical intervention, usually in the form of fluids to counteract the release of toxins and stabilize kidney function, along with other therapies to manage cardiac irregularities. And in fact, even with the most timely care, the prognosis is often poor. Apparently, only about 10% of people who experience crush syndrome go on to recover. At the hospital, the man's worsening condition was consistent with crush syndrome, and despite the best efforts of the medical team attending to him, there was little they could do. The injuries he suffered were just too great for him to overcome, and a week after he became...
Why is there even a spot in a man-made cave where someone can fall in and get stuck? It's man-made! Why the fuck is there a spot where someone could fall in and get stuck? I don't understand. That seems like a little bit of a oversight, don't you think?
Trapped in the indoor cave, he died at the hospital, surrounded by family. In the aftermath of his death, reporters covering the story came across a set of online reviews and learned that this wasn't the first time someone had gotten stuck in the indoor cave. A review dated 6 years prior to the man's incident was published to TripAdvisor by a woman who recounted her experience. The woman, her 12-year-old daughter, and her partner inquired about going caving when they visited the adventure center. According to her review, a staff member at the reception desk asked her partner how tall he was, and he told her that he was 5'10". The staff member then allegedly replied that her partner would be fine to enter the cave system as long as he was under 6 feet tall. The family then received their helmets and lights before they were led to the cave entrance, and once there, the woman wrote that they were on their own to explore the cave without supervision. Her partner then went in first and became stuck in a tight restriction almost immediately. This immediately frightened his stepdaughter, but he did his best to remain calm as he tried to wiggle his way forward, believing there was a way out ahead. As he continued on, however, it became clear that this wasn't the case, and he had to begin backtracking, which required significant...
So, when you say caving, like a man-made cave, are you talking like spelunking? Like the people who like fucking shimmy their way and like it's in like a fucking 2-inch hole? Is that what kind of cave we're talking? What the hell? Hey, you know that shit underground that like people die in all the time and no one actually wants to go? Let's make one above ground.
Pig would just be allowed, no need to ask for his height.
Pig would just be allowed, no need to ask for his height? Yeah, because I'm over 6 foot, so they wouldn't let me in.
Significant effort that kept the woman and her daughter extremely concerned for his well-being. Fortunately, he was eventually able to make his way back to the entrance without further incident. It's unclear what, if any, precautions have been put in place in the wake of the man's death. However, as of this video, there is no mention of the indoor cave on the Adventure Center's website, and while the center still offers indoor and outdoor climbing activities, it's also unclear if the indoor cave is still in operation.
That's such a stupid thing.
May 22nd, 2013 was field trip day for 2 4th grade classes from an elementary school in St. Paul, Minnesota, and the kids were in for a good one. The students were bound for Lilydale Regional Park, a destination that was a favorite among local school groups. This is a place where you can see all the layers of ancient earth and maybe, if you're lucky, find a seashell or leaf imprint fossilized in the stone. And one of the kids on that trip, a 10-year-old, had been counting down the days. In fact, just the night before, he'd rushed up to his dad and told him how excited he was.
Oh, great. I'm sure he's going to have a great time and not die horribly. No, this 10-year-old was the best child ever. He gave to charity. He saved a dying fox and nursed it back to health. And now he's going to die.
The park itself sits along the Mississippi River and is known for its dramatic bluffs. It used to be home to a brick-making company, and the clay pits left behind had become fossil gold mines. So every year, hundreds of school groups came in to walk those same trails, dig around in the dirt, and try to unearth something ancient. That Wednesday, the buses pulled up, the doors flung open, and excited kids poured out. As the kids made their way up one of the bluff trails, however, not far from where the clay pits curved in a horseshoe shape beneath the trees, something was shifting. The morning soon wore into early afternoon, but the excitement of the elementary school kids hadn't waned at all. On dirty hands and knees, the 4th graders poked and prodded the soil where fossils were known to be. After a brief break for lunch, the kids got right back to digging around, and that's when it happened. One moment, the students were poking around the hillside, crouched low with their classmates, and the next, the earth above, below, and around them gave out. There was no warning before the earth gave way. It just went, taking several students with it. Just after 1 p.m., a call came into the fire department with reports of a landslide at Lilydale Regional Park.
Landslide.
Somewhere along the bluff side, the ground, which had been saturated for days with heavy rains, had slumped and then collapsed. The heavy rainfall that had soaked the hillside had turned the clay and soil into something like wet cement, and as the kids moved along the unmarked trail, the ground finally gave way. The slide came down with force, carrying with it dirt, sand, rock, and everything else in its path. Minutes after the emergency call came in, a police officer was one of the first to arrive, and the scene was absolute chaos. There was mud everywhere, and the earth looked like it had melted in place. There were calls for help, panicked voices, and the terrible realization that some of the kids weren't accounted for.
Oh my God.
The officer and her partner didn't hesitate. They parked their cruiser and rushed to the collapsed area, dropping to their knees and digging barehanded into the unstable soil. But the consistency of the earth was unlike anything the officer had experienced before. It was like quicksand, and the more she dug, the more the earth swallowed her, and soon she was even buried up to her waist. Somewhere in the slurry of sand and water, though, the officer felt a small hand. A sense of even greater urgency overcame her as she dug desperately, trying to pull the boy free with the help of her partner, but it was too late. The 9-year-old was already gone.
Oh God.
Even worse, as far as they could tell in these early stages, there were still 3 students unaccounted for. One of the boys was luckily found buried waist deep, and crews were able to extract him rather quickly once he was located. Another boy, however, was totally submerged in the sand and water, and it took 90 minutes to free him before he was rushed to the hospital with chest injuries. And the third and final missing student wouldn't be found until the next day. The moment the family heard about the accident, they rushed to the scene, hoping and expecting to be reunited with their son. All they received instead, though, was the crushing news that he was still missing. By this point, lights were being set up around the impacted area as rescue crews planned to search throughout the night for the lost boy, but then the weather changed.
So goddamn horrible.
Rain
Holy
swept
shit.
back into the area and fell relentlessly, creating an even more unstable environment and one that was unsafe for rescuers to work in. The city would then announce that the search would be called off for the day and resume the next day. What they didn't tell the public was that they already considered this to be a recovery mission and not a rescue, meaning all hope of finding the boy alive was gone. When the search resumed the following day, rescuers found him lifeless under tons of sand and water as his parents helplessly watched from a safe area on the bluff. After his body was freed from the soil, he was placed on a stretcher and carried out of the hole. Once he reached the top of the bluff, his mother rushed over and kissed her son. As she left that day, she was so distraught that the father would almost have to carry her back to the car. In the days after the tragedy, investigators launched an independent review combing through records.
That's it. I'm not allowing Ezra to go on any field trips. All right, I changed my mind. I'm not signing any field trip forms anymore, chat. No, not after this.
Data and the terrain itself. What they concluded was maddening in its vagueness. The collapse, they said, was simply a natural disaster. It was a tragic convergence of spring rainfall, unstable soil, and heavy foot traffic on the bluff already prone to erosion. The area where the collapse occurred, known as the East Clay Pit, was a remnant of old mining operations, already carved into a horseshoe shape. Additionally, the spring of 2013 had been unusually wet. The soil was rain-saturated, soft beneath the surface, and riddled with groundwater from more than 3.5 inches of rain that fell over the course of a single week. From a geological standpoint, the East Clay Pit in Lilydale was a landmine just waiting for the right pressure. But here's where things got really uncomfortable.
These are very rare? What gave you that idea? The fact that this happened one time, and one time only?
City officials already knew that erosion was an issue along those bluffs. They had seen landslides before, most notably a big one in 2011 that occurred just 50 yards or 46 meters from the site of the fatal collapse. It was the same park, same slope, and the same kind of spring rain. Despite that, though, the area remained open to the public, and school groups were still given permits to explore there. The city issued about 400 of those fossil hunting permits every year, each one accompanied by a waiver acknowledging the risks. Risks, obviously, that until that day in 2013, no one had fully grasped. The report even framed the 2013 collapse as something no one could have foreseen. It was the perfect storm of conditions and a terrible act of nature, but others weren't so sure.
Nah.
Critics pointed to the 2011 landslide.
Dude, I feel like any place that is, like, prone to landslides should be, especially when children are fucking taking field trips there. Yeah, I feel like that shit needs to be a little bit watched and kept track of.
A warning that went unheeded. To them, the idea that nothing could have been done felt like a convenient way to sidestep accountability. In the months that followed, permits were suspended and remain so even to this day. Trails were reviewed, and St. Paul officials brought in consultants, including engineers, environmental experts, and erosion specialists to figure out how to make the area safer. It would take years, but in 2019, the city had completed a suite of changes that included better stormwater management, slope stabilization, and new trees planted to restore what had been lost. This was something, but to the families who lost their sons, obviously it would never be enough. In 2014, the St. Paul City Council approved a $1 million settlement to be split between the families of the two
That's it?
deceased and one of the surviving injured boys. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. If you have a story suggestion, feel free to submit it to the forum.
Man, that is... Oh, that is so fucking sad. Oh my god, I hated that so much.